Dr. White, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Why should I send my black student to a SBCU?
Well, HBCUs are important because, in my opinion, they are the best environment to answer those questions that African American students have about their existence. And it's not just the HBCU, because I'm sure that kids who are thinking about going from environments that are pretty much all black. However, it's the information that's important. And so you're able to get the information disseminated in an environment that is, one, not hostile, to the subject matter, and two, at least affords the student the opportunity to be in an academically honest environment regarding the information itself. So the question for me is an academic question. I would say go to an HBCU because the academics in the African
as partially geographical. And I'm just curious about how that factors in for someone who is African American, who's a part of the African diaspora, but doesn't have any direct connection to Africa themselves.
Right. Well, the direct connection to Africa themselves is biological, it's genetic. But it could also be experiential in that if there's a relationship between what we've experienced over here and what Africans have experienced during colonization. And that's why the civil rights movement is so important, because we discovered that we did. We discovered during the civil rights movement mostly because of the work of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, later on and they also, like James Farmer and others, were able to create the relationship, draw the nexus, to show that the experience is not, or the origin is not only skin color, it's not just the way you look, it's not only biological, but it's also experiential, right? So in answering that question of origin, there's so much involved in the question, and that's why, with Roots, even the book that was written by, and the movie, that was done libelously by Alex Haley, is important because, he was trying to show that there is a genetic, and the link is much closer between Africa and African Americans. So I hope I answered your question.
Oh, you certainly did.
Okay.
So it would be very beneficial for even those that haven't come from a predominantly African experience, as far as being black people,
Right.
to consider or to go to an HBCU to kind of wake themselves up.
Absolutely, absolutely. And even within the HBCU family, you have to be selective in the teachers that you choose. Because the struggle at the HBCU is a microcosm of the struggle, worldwide, which means that this information is, it could be threatening, or it could be as unpopular at a HBCU as it could be somewhere else, depending on the faculty, and depending on the climate, and depending on how the subject matter is embraced, right? The priority that it has. And so, the death of Martin Luther King and the death of Malcolm X were two events that pretty much gave rise, and have to give a shout out to Dr. Nathan Hare, who was really one of the founders of the Black Studies program, because it's critical for us to examine as a culture our history and our heritage, because the traditional paradigm is that we don't need it. Because you'll hear people say, why do I need to learn that? Or why do they need to learn that? That's not going to help them get a job. Well, why is China, and why is Germany, and why is the rest of Europe investing hundreds of billions of dollars in Africa? And you're telling me that I don't need to know the relationship? Why is China in West Africa now? China has always been in West Africa, because China, along with Russia, assisted West African countries in liberating themselves from the Europeans. So that relationship is not new, it's old. It'll eventually bring you to the present, because the relationships that are there, right? So you can't talk about the assassination of Martin Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or Bobby Hutton, or you can't talk about, those murders without talking about the murder of Patrice Lumumba.
Yeah.
You can't, talk about Fred Hampton's murder without talking about Steve Biko,
Yep.
Chris Honey, and all,
Yep.
because they were all murdered for the same reason.
Yep.
The African presidents, Omar Marshall and Amilcar Cabral and Thomas Sankara and Maurice Bishop, all of those were African presidents that were assassinated. Why were they assassinated? They were assassinated because they were coming up with economic paradigms that were contrary to Western interests. And we can also ask the question, for the same reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so even now, jet black Africans are being enslaved in Libya because of the destabilization that the NATO forces caused, allegedly liberating Libya from Gaddafi himself, you see? So the issues that we have now, like Julius Malima's African Reclamation, now, and that we discuss now. If we want to talk about Robert Sobukwe, what Robert Sobukwe went through, what he dealt with is no different than what the freedom fighters over here, SNCC and the Freedom Riders and so forth, had to deal with and pay for with their lives just like he did, So I don't know where else you're going to learn that. So if we don't continue to teach the history and we don't continue to push, that's what in my opinion, in my honest opinion, my academic opinion, having taught this for 26 years, 6 classes per section, 30 kids per section, I have yet to have a student that could name 10 West African countries on day 1 of class. That's right. And so if you come to me and you can't name 10 West African countries, you see, you don't know who W.B. Du Bois is, you think Martin Luther King freed the slaves, you don't know who Booker T. Washington is, your high school was named after him, you don't know who Marcus Garvey is. How are those people supposed to act? If they don't, they're supposed to act exactly like they're acting. So that's why we're not prejudiced toward our students. We're not ashamed of them, because you can't help people. You can't teach people that you're ashamed of. We're not ashamed of them in any way, shape, form, or fashion. But we do understand that they're coming to us critically disadvantaged, academically, critically, having not understood even some of the basic topography of where Africa is. Where is East Africa? Where is West Africa? Where's the those questions? But if you have not been, if you have graduated from a high school that never made it mandatory, why would you know? If you went to a church and it was not explained that Hebrew people were dark-skinned African people that migrated from around 4 continents, our people have never been hindered or never been hemmed in by one continent. African people are global people. And so we've always, but we have left to conquer, or we have left to help, So we've never had to pack up and leave because of famine, because of all of those types of things. All of that comes along with colonialism. It comes along with circumstances outside of the African control, right? So we may travel, our names may change, our culture will evolve, even physically we will evolve as far as our phenotype, but our genotype pretty much remains the same. So we can find our blood wherever in the world we want to, even in South Africa amongst the Limba people who have the genetic trait of the high priest in the Bible. Well, how did they way down there? So if they stuff took place way up there, you see somebody's wrong, something's not right. Either the names are wrong, which my thesis is a lot of the names are wrong, right? And where these people are and who these people are has been grossly distorted. So when we begin to put the pieces of the puzzle together, it tells a very different story. And I've been very vague and very crude, in some of my examples, but I think to a group of people who are just starting out, I think it's appropriate.
All right. White, I thank you very much.
Hey, thank you, man.
You know,
Hope I helped.
this is Real Talk with Herschel. We're moving our communities forward. We have to support men like Dr. White that are helping our young people learn their heritage and learn their origins. Because if you don't know where you're from, you really can't go anywhere, right? So I ask that you reach out to Dr. White. You send your children on tours of these HBCUs and stay involved with your children. Dr. White has opened his doors up to us and anybody in the community that needs help. So we have to use the resources that we have available to us. So some of those people down in Wiregrass and Western Alabama, reach out. There are lots of Dr. Whites out there. We just have to find them and we have to publicize them and give them access to our children, to our young, some of our older folks too.
Yeah, and we are mobilized, which means that we have a very tight-knit community of scholars who have been tried and tested, you know, and have gone through the research methods and have, you know, because, you know, when we stand up and talk about these things, we have to be able to back them up. And at the same time, we're not arguing with people, we're not trying to, you know, get one up on people or make people look bad or debunk or refute anybody on anything. We are just of our people who have not been exposed to particularly African American literature, to pick up a book and start reading about yourself. So we stand ready to help. So thank you, Brother Herschel.
Appreciate you, Dr. White, and always all power to the people.
All right.
All right.